Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Monotui, and today we are bringing you guys another episode of our Orange Draft League Viability discussion. I believe this is going to be part 7. Of course, we are joined by my co-host, Schady. Please introduce yourself once again.
Hello, I'm forced to be here against my will.
Yep. But the good news is this is more than likely going to be the last part. Unless Schady inexplicably loses one of his limbs and needs to be carried away to the hospital. But regardless of that happening, let's start off with,
What?
Well, because, if you lose an arm, you probably shouldn't finish the rest of the Pokemon video. You should probably seek medical attention. Makes sense.
Why?
Anyway, Thundurus.
This is the least professional series on YouTube, and I love it.
So, Thundurus Incarnate is regarded by a lot of people to be the best electric type in the format. It's definitely up there. I think there are 3 that contend with it, like Thundee-I, Thundee-T, and then Zapdos. But they're all super good, and Thundurus-I definitely has its good qualities that separates it from the other 2. For one, its ability in Prankster is really, really good. Obviously, Prankster T-Wave is awesome. Prankster Taunt is always nice. Prankster Sub can even come in handy. Nasty Plot, things like that. Toxic if you want to run that or whatever. Its other ability in Defiant is also usable. I drafted this thing in this last PPL season. I haven't found the time to use it, but it's absolutely viable for teams with good Intimidate users, or if you want to punish Defog, it's always really good in that regard. It does have very good mixed options, as you can see. Special attack at 125, physical attack at 115. You can run it mixed with superpower or knockoff. You can run it fully physical. You can run it fully special. You can run setup on both sides. It gets access to agility, nasty plot, as well as bulk up. Unfortunately, it doesn't get acrobatics, but not the worst thing in the world, unlike Torn T, unfortunately. But other than that, it's really, really good. Also, another thing that is really good about it is its speed tier. 111 is really nice. You're able to outspeed base 110s, obviously the Lotties, Gengar, things along those lines. And its move pool is good enough to the point where it's going to 2-hit KO pretty much everything on your opponent's roster, most of the time. Thunderbolt, Focus Blast, Hidden Power, Sludge Wave, Iron Tail if you want it, Knockoff, Flash Cannon. Grass Knot is always really nice for ground types, whatever Hidden Power you want to run. Superpower, if I didn't say that already, U-Turn, Wild Charge, Crunch even. It's got so many different things at its disposal. It's always a mon that your opponent is going to be afraid of. No matter what their roster is, nobody's going to be like, oh, Thundurus-I, this isn't that big of a problem. Even if it doesn't necessarily have the best matchup in your eyes, your opponent is always going to be afraid of it because it is just so good. Definitely pair it with some hazard removal just so that obviously you don't have to take the rocks damage. Or if you want, you can pair it with a more offensive team, because it does function really, really well on offensive teams, and you can just send it in when the time is right, start setting up or start breaking through your opponent's team. Thundurus Incarnate is so good. Also gives Schady nightmares, so you can go ahead and start on that.
I hate it. It cost me a championship once, and I'm sad. Sad. Anyway, Thundee-I is ridiculous. It just doesn't have good switch-ins. I think Stunfisk is a good one, and that's pretty much it. I think that's where it stops. Yeah, it's stupidly good. Thundee-T and Thundee-I is a bit of a toss-up. What you like more? Do you want the power and the better setup mon, which is Thundee-T, or do you want the mixed options and the better speed plus the Prankster T-Wave, which is of course Thundee-I? Yeah, you cover pretty much everything. I think it's ridiculous. Other electric types get stopped fairly effectively by ground types, and this one just doesn't care. Straight up doesn't. It's ridiculous. It kills everything. And it's also not that easy to check because you always have to worry about the Prankster T-Wave, which just makes it so much more threatening, and then, it's a massive threat. Defensively, nothing really deals with it. Offensively, you're gonna get T-Wave potentially, and then you're just sad. Yeah, it's a really fucking good Pokemon.
Yeah, something I've actually noticed recently while building with it is that even though you always want coverage, and this thing has really good move coverage, it's not often going to have 4 move slot syndrome, sometimes it's honestly better to give up a coverage move for Thunder Wave just because of how useful that move can be. Just because you're guaranteed to get off the best move in the game on something, and that is just something that is always just really, really good. If your matchup is good enough, you can run Nasty Plot and Thunder Wave, and then something that comes in that is forced to attack you, there's no other option, you can just paralyze and cripple for the rest of your team to help out. It's really, really good on its own. It's a really good team player. It's so good, and you can even build it somewhat bulky. Obviously, that's the most common set in VGC as the bulky set, like more specially defensive. It's not as common in singles, just because you want to take advantage of its offensive capabilities, and its defensive stats aren't great, but its defensive typing is still really solid, and it can take a decent number of hits depending on how you build it, and it is just really solid in pretty much every aspect. There's very little holding this thing back. Really, the only thing holding this thing back is its weakness to rocks, and that can be covered relatively easily. Definitely. Also definitely be careful of that, because as soon as your opponent sees Defiant, they are going to immediately think that you don't have Thunderwave, which would make sense, so they might be able to play around it a little bit more aggressively. But yeah, there are definitely mind games you can play with this thing for other people. So that is Thundurus Incarnate. Super good. One of my favorite Pokemon in the format. I think it's my second favorite electric type, second or third. This is tied with the other Thundy. We'll get into my favorite electric type in a little bit, but before then, you can cover Tornadus Therian.
Yay, the next genie. Tornti, the universal switch into everything in OU apparently, at least if you're bad. This thing is ridiculous here. It has one of the best abilities in the game in Regenerator. Mean that you don't really care about Stealth Rocks because you just recover it back, and even more than that, means it's a fantastic pivot because it has really decent bulk in 79, 80, 90 bulk. It is really good. Plus, it has a ridiculous speed tier in 121, which is so good. Outspeeding things like Alakazam and stuff by just 1 point. Outspeeding the aforementioned Schady and I and other base 110s as well, and all that stuff. It just outspeeds most relevant threats that aren't megas. And checks them checks a lot of them effectively. You can switch a thing in Draco if you're running an Assault Vest set, chew one, and then U-turn out, knock off, depending on what dragon you're facing. So yeah, defensively or like as a pivot, it's really good, but also its offensive capabilities are really strong now. It's not the strongest Pokemon. 100, 110 attacking sets are good, but they're not amazing. But its move pool is ridiculous, to the point where you can look at essentially every draft and realize, oh, they don't have a switch into this. At least not a safe one. Things like Rotom Wash, Lantern, Stunfisk again, switch into the thing. But other than that, safely there isn't much. It has, of course, the stab flying moves and Hurricane, Air Slash, Acrobatics. Then it gets Knockoff and U-turn, more standard moves, Heat Wave as well. Blast, Superpower. Also gets things like Grass Knot, Sludge Wave, Extra Sensory, Dark Pulse, Psychic, all kinds of stuff. So you can basically build a thing to check or even counter or break anything. The thing is just incredible nuisance to pretty much any team ever. Despite Regenerate, I think you should still have removal with it, because after rocks you don't want to take hits as much, like a Specs Draco or something. You're not going to take it anymore. Without rocks you can. There's also the Taunt set, which is also really cool because people are probably going to switch in fat stuff that can take its hits relatively well-ish. And you taunt them, and that's cool. Also good counter lead, because people are just going to expect the U-turn. You can taunt them instead and prevent rocks and stuff like that, which is nice. Something else that you should probably pair with this thing is a good ground type, as with most teams. Actually, any team should have one, but this thing definitely can make use of one, because people are going to try and Volt Switch on it, and you switch in a ground type, be like, no, and then it's happy. Also gets Bulk Up. If you feel like setting up with the thing is cool. I think I've seen like Rest, Sleep Talk, Bulk Up, Acrobatics, which is cool. I don't know how effective it is, but it's a really cool set. And just overall the thing is so good. It's easily worth round 1 in any draft. Yeah, it just does the job, and it's such a nuisance to your opponent.
Absolutely. Tornti has so many different things going for it. There are very few mons in the entirety of the game that are the combination of bulky, fast, and hard-hitting. And this thing is all three, particularly with the Assault Vest, but even without the Assault Vest, it's still relatively bulky, especially since it's so fast. You can usually invest in something like HP. Like you said, this thing is incredibly good. It fits on so many different teams, pretty much any team. People like to run it also with rain teams, particularly, like, for example, Kelly in the PPL currently has this thing on a rain team. Obviously, you get 100% accurate Hurricanes. You can run it more offensively more of the time, which is really nice. This, honestly, is a mon I don't really consider for drafts for one reason, and that reason is you will more than likely lose the game, at least one game, because you miss a Hurricane. It's just... It's like you can run Air Slash, but that's not nearly as strong, and Hurricane is so much more tempting with the added power behind it, plus the 30% chance to confuse. Hurricane being its strongest move is inaccurate. It's 70% accurate. You're not going to be hitting it all the time unless you're in the rain. And it's always scary. Like, it's always scary for your opponent, but it's almost guaranteed that at least once in a season you are going to lose because you miss a Hurricane.
Yeah.
Like, it's happened to plenty of people. Like, Shroom, for example, last season missed Hurricanes plenty of times on his Tornadus Incarnate. I believe Matty Brawlick was knocked out of the tournament because he missed the Summer Madness tournament because he missed a Hurricane on Mega Pinsir, and then it swept him. So it's just a very dangerous Pokemon in that regard, but other than that, like, you don't always have to run Hurricane. You can run Physical, you can run Air Slash in certain matchups. It has crazy good coverage to hit everything else anyway. That's just the only problem with this thing, is that the move that you're going to want to click the most misses 30% of the time.
Yeah.
That, and honestly, I never know, like, what nature to run on this thing. Just ever. Because, like, I usually want to run it mixed, and then, like, but it's supposed to be, like, bulky, but then, like, if I run a minus SpDef nature, it's not as, so it's, like, it's kind of confusing in that regard, not as important as the Hurricane thing, but just a little nitpick of mine. But regardless, Torrentee is super good. As long as you know how to use it and you're not afraid to, like, click Hurricane, then you're good. But with that being said, we're now going to move on to one of my favorite Pokemon in, like, the entirety of the game and entirety of draft format, and that's Tyranitar. Whew, this is the mon I think, like, a lot of people, like, didn't consider for a very long time, up until, like, 1 or 2 seasons of leagues ago. For whatever reason. I think because it was, like, slow and had a 4 times weakness, which, as we all know now, is, like, not the biggest concern for a mon to have. The only stat that Tyranitar has that's bad is its speed, and even then is a very usable choice Scarfer. If you run Jolly Max Speed, you will be able to outspeed Max Speed base 115s, such as, like, Raikou, Sneasel, things like that, which are really nice. You'll be able to hit them very hard. Tyranitar is incredibly versatile. It's genuinely one of the most versatile in draft format. Like, I had this thing Season 2 of Division 2, and I ran a different set every single week that I brought it. I think I ran each choice item. I ran Scarf, I ran Choice Band, I ran Choice Specs. I ran Assault Vest, I ran Choppleberry, I ran Defensive one week with Thunder Wave and Stealth Rocks. It's just so good. There are so many different things this thing can do. It hits incredibly hard. Base 134 attack stat is really, really nice, and it has 2 very spammable offensive stabs in Stone Edge and Crunch, which is always really nice, and is an excellent Pursuit Trapper. It can switch into almost any Psychic type in the game, take a hit, even if it's a Hidden Power fighting, even if it's, in a lot of cases, a Focus Blast, depending on how you invest, and then it can just go for Pursuit and knock out whatever is in front of it. It has a crazy good move pool. It obviously has things like Fire Punch, Ice Beam, Fire Blast. It gets access to Dragon Dance, as I know, unfortunately. Regular T-Tar isn't the best Dragon Dance sweeper, just because, again, it is relatively slow, and you outsped by most other Scarfers and things that are faster than base 115, but definitely can be used, though I think that's the one advantage Mega T-Tar has over this, that's a better Dragon Dance sweeper. But regardless, again, you can run mix with, like, Dark Pulse, Earth Power, Earthquake, Fire Blast, Fire Punch, Focus Blast, I don't think is ever used, but because you have Superpower on the physical side, but it is there. Iron Head to hit fairies. Low Kick is totally viable. Like I mentioned, it does have access to Pursuit. It gets access to Roar. It's a Rock Polish sweeper if you want it to be. Very good Stealth Rocker as well. It's almost guaranteed to take a hit all the time and then set up Stealth Rocks. You can taunt not as fast things, stop them from setting up, or stop them from setting up hazards or something along those lines. Like I said, it does get access to Thunder Wave, which is always really good. There are just so many different things this thing can do. Its stat distribution is crazy. Like I said, unstab, even like stab Hidden Power fightings, or like some stab physical fighting moves are not going to knock this thing out, even without a Choppleberry, because it is just insanely bulky. With 100 HP, 110 defense, and 100 SpDef, plus your SpDef is being boosted by the sand, so you are able to live certain unstab Focus Blasts. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, if you slap on an Assault Vest and you invest properly, I'm pretty sure, like, Focus Blast from Alakazam doesn't 2 KO this thing. It's just absolutely absurd how bulky this thing can be. And of course, they also have to hit Focus Blasts. Like, I remember I ran this thing, like, Choice Scarfed with, like, a naive nature and no HP investment, and it still didn't go down to Life Orb Latios's Hidden Power fighting. Like, it's just absolutely insane how well this thing takes hits. It's crazy how hard this thing hits, and it's crazy just how good it is, just in its entirety. If there's anything you want to add, go ahead.
There really isn't. You mentioned absolutely everything, because they used the thing for full season, you get swept by it. That's great. Yeah, Tita is stupidly good. It also limits a lot of Pokemon on the opponent's side, just like it does in OU. It limits the Latias, and it does the same in draft. Of course, the Latias can attempt to prep, but the Tita can also prep for the prep. You know what I mean? The standard counter team stuff, you know? And it still deals with the Latias just as well. It's stupidly good. It's probably not the Pokemon for anyone. I think lesser experienced draft players are not going to get as much out of it, but it's still going to do some work. But if you're experienced in format like Mono, like Trav, like Fizz, who all use it very well, then just draft the thing and it will do wonders for you. That's also X-Roll, Tita X-Roll, just do it.
Oh yeah, another thing was like, if you're looking to get,
not to.
Yeah, like if you're looking to get stand offense, definitely try for T-Tar first, just because it's that much better.
Yeah, and Napoleon is trash.
But T-Tar is like just like you're getting like, I think Trav picked up T-Tar literally just for sand, and then T-Tar did better than Excadrill in the end. Like it was up there among like top 5 in the MVP race. It's just absolutely, it's ridiculous. It's just so good.
It's a god.
Also, if you don't want to run sand, Unnerve is a very usable ability in draft format, because a lot of psychic types like to run Colbur Berry, and then they can't use that if you're crunching them with Unnerve. So that's cool. Of course, you're not getting the Spadef boost either, but sometimes you just don't want sand.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's Tyranitar. Super good. If you have a decent amount of league experience, I definitely recommend picking this thing up. I can definitely see it being round 1 now. Like, it's just so good. I don't think many people will pick it up round 1, but I definitely recommend it's good enough to do that. So yeah, Tyranitar.
Okay, cool. Tita's cool guy. Moving on to a less cool guy, in my opinion at least. Mega Venusaur. I'm like in the minority of people that think the thing is not as great. It's really bulky. It is stupidly bulky. It hard walls so many Pokemon that other things just don't deal with. Like Zumroll cannot touch this unless it's like a Jolly max speed belly drum bounce variant. But then you just run speed to outspeed it, so it just hard walls a lot of Pokemon. With thick fat, and it's just generally really good typing in Poison Grass. It only has 2 weaknesses in Flying and Psychic, which are both, well, Flying is very strong in the format, but you can both play you know, you can just draft like a Teton with this, even though that's probably a terrible idea because you have to run Synthesis. Sand, it's bad. You get my point. You basically have to draft a good core around this. I think the Venotran core used to be really common. But yeah, Mega Venusaur, fat, takes hits. It actually hits pretty hard. It has 122 special attack, which is pretty strong, and 100 base attack is okay. It's enough to run Earthquake on it, or knockoff, depending on the matchup. And the bulk in 80, 123, 120 is stupid, and it has a decent speed stat was in 80, which for walls is a pretty good speed stat. Now, it's a wall straight up, and its only reliable recovery is Synthesis, unless you want on rest, which again isn't reliable. That's also an option though. Synthesis only has 8 PP, and it doesn't work as well in rain and in sand, and that's a problem. It also is just a really boring Pokemon usually, because you run dual step most of the time. You run Synthesis and you have one moveset and change around, which is like knockoff, HP Fire, Earthquake, you know, whatever you want. Of course you can get creative. If in case you don't have to Mega first turn, you can run this as a regular Venusaur still, but rarely really effective because, you know, you don't have a life orb. So that also gets Sword Stance and stuff like that, but most of those options are just not too viable in many matchups. They are definitely possible occasionally, but it's just, I don't like this Pokemon. It's just not my thing. Yeah, it does things. It's fat, it takes hits, it's boring. I don't like it. Like, it hard walls fairies and deals with 90% of fighting types really effectively, borrowing the ones that get like acrobatics or some shit, but no, I don't like it. You go. I don't like this Pokemon.
So I'm pretty sure I put Hidden Power Fire, but apparently this thing wants to go Hidden Power Water.
Full of Luperius.
Yeah, definitely. So I like Mega Venusaur a lot, and I also don't. The main reason I don't is because this is the thing I always like can't beat in draft format. It's just like,
You're bad.
Yeah, like my first loss in draft format in D2 Season 1 was to a Mega Venusaur. Also, it's because of my own Tangrowth, but it's beside the point. Also, I faced it somewhat recently in a more casual league, and the person I played against brought Spadef Curse, which just destroyed me.
Oh.
It was just like really, really good. Mega Venusaur, like you said, it is insanely bulky. It does also hit very hard. It's one of those Pokemon, kind of like Zapdos, kind of like a few other Mons, that is very difficult to find a Mon that is both a switch into this thing and that also simultaneously deals with it. Because like, you can send in your like, I don't know, like your Umbreon or whatever else you have with it. And like, sure, you can take its hits, but you're not gonna necessarily beat it 1v1. You're just gonna have a war forever, and this thing can get a Sludge Bomb poison on you. You're forced to Heal Bell, things like that. There are a couple other Mons that have that example. So a lot of bulky poison types can switch into this thing, but they can't necessarily deal with it because they won't be able to knock it out, and they can force it to use Synthesis, but that's about it. Its move pool is pretty decent, like you said. Sludge Bomb, Giga Drainus, Dual Stab is really good. Obviously, whatever hidden power you want to run, and it does get access to Knockoff as well as Earthquake. And then I think that's pretty much it. You can run Power Whip if you want on the physical side. Like if you are the Curse variant, you can do that. Leech Seed is a decent option. Sleep Powder is also really good. Swords Dance is there. I wouldn't recommend it, but it is there if you kind of want to. The biggest problem I have with this thing is because it's a Mega, you can't run leftovers on it, and like I've mentioned with a couple other things, it is a very good water type switch in that doesn't like being burnt by Scald. So if you do decide to pick this thing up, I would definitely recommend getting a better Scald switch in along with it. Like picking this up alongside something like Vaporeon or Heliolisk is always really good, maybe like a Seismitoad, one of those type of things. Volcanion also works if you want to, just like something that alleviates this thing having to switch into Scalds, because that's like once you get burnt, like Specs Keldeo 2, it KOs you. So it's like you don't want this thing to get burnt, and you don't want this thing to like have to switch into Scalds and other bulky water types, so get something else to deal with that. If you do want this thing as a part of a Fire, Water, Grass core, then definitely I would recommend it. It is super good in that aspect. It is like a very, very solid Pokemon. Just like it's susceptible to being worn down with hazards and with burn and things like that, so definitely build around it smart.
I don't like it.
Okay.
It's not bad, I don't like it.
Also, what is nice, one of the biggest weaknesses that Mega Venusaur has is Psychic types, which you just slap on a Pursuit Trapper and then you're good. Woo.
I still don't like it.
Okay, moving on. The newest Pokemon... What?
I'm not opinionated at all. Like, I'm not.
Okay.
Okay, go on.
The newest Pokemon to ORAS OU is Volcanion. And this is a Mon, as every new Pokemon, because the community just cannot shut up about new things and have the most varying opinions, from it's gonna suck ass to it's gonna be the broken and Ubers and stuff. Volcanion. I really, really like Volcanion. It has a lot of good things going for it. It definitely has its drawbacks, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but let's go about the strengths first. Just as an obvious strength, you get access to a new move called Steam Eruption. It is the same power as Hydro Pump with the Scald Burn chance, and it is 95% accurate, so it's like a much better Hydro Pump. It's Hydro Scald. It has a 5% chance to miss, which kind of sucks, and it only has HP, which kind of 8 HP, which kind of sucks, but it's a really, really strong Scald, and that's this, you know, it's a better, like, Scald's already one of the best moves in the game, and then you just made it more powerful, so awesome. Water Fire is, like, really good offensive coverage. Like, obviously, you deal with grass types really, really well, and you just deal with so many different things. Like, electric types don't want to switch into this thing at all. It also gets, obviously, access to Earth Power, as well as something like Sludge Wave. It also has really good mixed options. Its attack stat is 110. That's really nice. I remember when I built my first team in OU with Volcanion, I ran Specs with Superpower, just so that I can 2-KO Chansey on the switch-in. What?
It doesn't 2-KO Chansey.
That is not if you believe hard enough.
I use that team, it doesn't. Someone was lying to you. Don't listen to him.
Alright, well maybe if you run it with Life Orb and Mix, then you can do a KO chance. Anyway.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So, like I said, very powerful special attack stat. At 130, you can have access to, obviously, Steam Eruption, Fire Blast, Earth Power, Sludge Wave. I believe it gets access to Flash Cannon if you want it, Focus Blast. Let's see if anything else. Sludge Bomb and Sludge Wave I mentioned. And then its physical move pool is also really solid as well. It gives access to Earthquake, Explosion, if you want to do that for whatever reason. It gets access to Flare Blitz as well. I believe it gets access to, Rock Slide, Stone Edge, Superpower, things that I've mentioned already. People can run it bulky as well, like a bulkier set with Leftovers and like Will-O-Wisp. Definitely makes sense. It is technically a bulky water. It's bulky, it is a water type, and it gets access to Scald and Steam Eruption, so you can do that. Flame Charge is a really cool set as well, just because it's so bulky. You can tank a hit, go for Flame Charge, get yourself to +1 speed, and then start attacking things. It's also, something I've noticed is it's a very, very good sub-user. Like, being able to dodge a status is always really nice, especially the best switch into Volcanion are bulky water types, since it doesn't get anything directly good enough to hit it. But if you run sub, and your opponent's Vaporeon or whatever, or Melodic or whatever, isn't running Roar, you can just sub, go for a Toxic, whittle it down with Hidden Powers or Earth Powers or whatever else. If you're facing like an Alamomolo that can switch into it, you just sub and then it can't do anything to you. So that can be really, really obnoxious. Like, Sub Toxic is honestly one of my favorite sets to run on this thing. And also, like, the spec set is just really good. It's really powerful, OHKOs a lot, and it's very difficult to OHKO this thing. Assault Vest is also really good. You can take Thunderbolt, stab Thunderbolts from things and just knock them out with a move. Can take Stab Earth Powers, can take some Stab and Unstab Earthquakes just because it's very naturally bulky. It has a lot of really good things going for it. Of course, it does have its drawbacks. Its speed stat at base 70 isn't terrible, but a lot of things will be able to outspeed you and to KO you. Granted, because of its natural bulk, you're not getting OHKO'd by a lot. Like, I think max HP Volcanion isn't OHKO'd by Scarfed Excadrill's Earthquake, and that's a very powerful Earthquake coming from a very powerful Pokemon, so you can imagine how well it tanks other hits. Also, its weakness to rocks is a little bit unfortunate, just because, like, you know, losing 25% of your HP every time you switch in is kind of unfortunate, especially when you're supposed to be so bulky. It is weak to Toxic and Thunder Wave, as are a lot of different things, but getting this thing Thunder Wave just kind of sucks because everything will be able to outspeed you and hit you relatively hard. And then with the Toxic, you're just going to be worn down. If there are rocks up as well, you're getting whittled. So it is weak to faster, more offensive teams, but it's not too weak to offensive teams just because of its natural bulk. It'll usually take one of anything and then fire back a very powerful hit. But that being said, it definitely is susceptible to things like hazards, to things like status, to faster offensive mons. So if you want to chip in a little bit, chime in with your thoughts. Ken.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Volcanion is an interesting case. I know Fizz had in GBA and he fucking hated it. I know Kyle is using it right now in PPLD too, and I think he really likes it. So, you know, different opinions, as you said. And I think it's a really cool mon. You just kind of need to build around it, I feel, because you need to make sure you have really good electric switch-ins. You need to make sure you have really good ground switch-ins. You need to make sure you have really good hazard removal. Otherwise, the thing is just going to get worn down way too quickly, or just going to die way too quickly. Water Absorb, I don't think you particularly pointed that out, did you? I don't know. It's just really good ability because Scald is annoying, and you can just be like, no, not annoying, because you just switch in and it does nothing, and it's great. Also, Spec Steam Eruption just nukes stuff, which is really cool. There's always the option of running Explosion to, you know, surprise some bulky waters and get to make the way free for some other threat on your team. Power Up Solar Beam is always an option. I think, does it get Sunny Day? Let's see. It does get Sunny Day. So Sunny Day Solar Beam is always an option in case you have another Pokemon on your team that can sweep as soon as the bulky water type is gone. So it's a good bait in that regard. It's a decent Scarf user. Like, it does not speed the super fast things like Mega Aerodactyl, but that's pretty much it. Like, base 70 is a decent speed tier decent speed tier for Scarfs, and yeah, it's a cool mon. It just needs a little bit of hand holding, I feel, but it does its things. I think Kyle ran like Sub-Toxic Protect, which is disgusting, and I get like 3 kills. That's really gross. But yeah, Volcanion is a cool guy. When it first came out, I was like, I'm gonna draft the thing round 1 as soon as it comes out, and now I didn't do that. It's a cool guy. It just kind of takes up 2 typings at the same time, which for some people it's good, for some people it's not good. Depends on who you are, really. Some people like that, some people just don't. Just how it goes. But I think you should definitely have 2 water types, like another water type with the thing. Something like a Seismitoad. I think we always talk about Seismitoad water types, don't we? Always happens. Yeah, you should pair it up with something like that because it just matches up really well, and you have a water can actually switch into things and not care as much about rocks and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I just was looking through its move pool and saw that it didn't get Lava Plume, which is kind of disappointing because it's like literally a volcano.
Also, it's interrupt. Stupid.
That's just unfortunate, but yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it is a very good sub user. I'm also using this thing in a more casual league, and I'm really enjoying it. I paired it with Mega Diancie, which I think is a really good offensive pairing with it, and then for as well as Salamence, and then for another bulky water to go along with it, I paired it with Alomomola, which does work really well with it, because like you can obviously Wish Pass back to it, and I have Crocodile as my ground type, so every time they go for an electric move, they have the risk of getting Pursuit Trapped or just hit really hard, so you definitely can build around this thing very solid. It is a very solid Pokemon. It's super scary for your opponent, just because it's very difficult to find, like you can't switch in your bulky grass necessarily because it gets fire coverage, obviously. The bulky waters that you can switch into this thing can't really touch it back unless it's running like Roar or Hidden Power Electric or something along those lines. And even then, like Subtoxic is a thing. So it is really good, and I think if you're a little bit creative with it, it definitely benefits from that, because you can't just run specs every week and expect it to do a ton of work. But that's Volcanion, really cool. I call it Broken Xbox because it's the red ring of death up here. Anybody remember that? Cool.
I do.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we are now coming close to the end. You can now pick it up with Weavile.
Yay. So Weavile is an interesting case. 125 speed is a ridiculously good speed tier. 120 attack is really strong. And it has two of the best, if not the best, two stabs in the game. In Dark and Ice, being Knockoff, and Ice Crash, Ice Punch, and even Ice Shot for priority. Unfortunately, it doesn't get Sucker Punch. That'd be kind of nice, but you know. I think it was MVP in GBA Season 3?
4.
Something?
4.
Same thing. Is it? Was it 4? I don't know.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm pretty sure it was 3.
No, it was 4.
Anyway.
3 didn't finish.
Oh yeah, that was that season. Yeah, okay. Cool. So a lot of people thought, oh my god, the thing's like the best thing ever. Then the people realized it's not actually the best thing ever. It's really easy to bait in. Just give something a berry and just kill it with, like, I think someone ran Cobbleberry with Cobbleberry Uniclus with Brain Punch, which was cool. It's like it's easy to bait, but if the thing comes in at the right time, you just kind of don't have a switch in, and it's also a really good Pursuit Trapper at that, because it, you know, outspeed things. It has a stab dark, which is it's good. It does ow. Ice Shot, strong Ice Shot is always really, really good in draft format. And I've used Sneasel for the last PPL season now, and I absolutely love that thing. And Weavile is just kind of Sneasel on crack, obviously, because it's the evolution. It's kind of how it works. And it's so good. The dual step is so strong. It's always nice to have that strong knockoff Pursuit and Ice Shot in the back. Yeah, there's not much to say. Like, you can run SD, which I don't think is common, because like usually like I can't run SD because I'm gonna die to everything, or like I need 4 moves, because you usually run coverage move, let it be low kick, mode, jab for you know, fairies, if that's what you want to do, or you just run knockoff, Icicle Crash, Ice Shot, and Pursuit, which, you know, you already have your 4 moves slots there. But yeah, Weavile is a really cool mon. I probably in like a what's it called, like a budget-based draft, like a PPL, I probably would prefer Sneasel, because it's like half the price, I think, and it's almost as good. Emphasis on almost. But yeah, Weavile is a really cool dude. Is it a dude? I don't know. It looks like Lisa Simpson, so probably not. Probably not. Yeah, there's not much. It just does the job. It's a really good check to so many psychic types, so many dragon types as well. By so many, I mean almost all of them. And it should get Technician as an ability, but it doesn't. Stupid. Just want to point it out.
Okay.
Game Freak, please.
So yeah, Weavile is a very good plug-and-play mon. You can typically just slap like a Life Orb or a Choice Band on this thing, give it its standard knockoff, Icicle Crash, Ice Shard, filler move, and then, you know, invest max attack, a lot of speed, and be good. There are a couple different things it can do. It does get access to Poison Jab, which is really nice. It can 2 KO things like Clefable, Sylveon, Florges, which is always really good. You know, bulky fairies and such. It gets access to Low Kick to hit a lot of the bulky steals that may want to switch into this thing. which is really good. And then of course it is a very good Pursuit Trapper, like you mentioned, because most teams will have like 1 or 2 switch-ins to Weavile, whether it be like a Scizor, Mega or regular, a Keldeo, a bulky fighting type, something along those lines, even like an Arcanine or a bulky fire type or something along those lines, bulky steel, etc. So like it forces a lot of switches, so Pursuit is always a really good option for it. Even if you don't necessarily want to trap something specific like a good Psychic type, you can just Pursuit and get a lot of free damage off onto something. It also gets access to, like you said, Swords Dance, which can be useful in certain situations if you don't need the move coverage. A lot of times all you need is just knock off Icicle Crash, Ice Shard, so sometimes you can run Swords Dance. It's very difficult to get it to set up because it is very frail, and it's easy to pick off with priority, but the option is there. I think there isn't really too much else to go over. Weavile's a very good plug-and-play mon. I would also like to point out it's not very frail on the special side. Like, it has surprisingly decent special defense with 70 HP and 85 SPDF. So you can switch this thing on some special attacks. Not many, because it's not super bulky and you're not going to be investing in bulk. But you can sometimes switch it into special attacks if you're, like, expecting... Like, if you can switch it into special ghost moves or special psychic moves, obviously. And even if they go for, like, a hidden power ice or, like, an unstabbed T-Bolt, you can take it. Physical defense isn't great, but it's not meant to take hits. It's meant to really just clean up late game. Definitely pair this thing with Hazard Stack because it is fast. It can turn 2 AKOs into OKOs, OKOs to 3 AKOs to 2 AKOs. And yeah, it's really, really solid. You can definitely justify picking this thing up round 1. Definitely pair it with some hazard removal. It's good with things like Mega Blastoise. Starmie is fine with it. You know, just the general spinners. Sand offense is also okay with it, like T-Tart. Well, not really T-Tart, but like if you want to go the Hippowdon route with Sand, Hippowdon, Excadrill, Weavile is pretty solid. So yeah, also definitely get something that can switch into Mach and or Bullet Punches because it does not want to take those.
Yeah, get good fighting switch-ins. Also, if you can get Megalope on the Weavile, that's really good. Just for the record, you should do that.
Yeah, you'd think
Sounds
it like
really
wouldn't
fun.
be because they're like weak to the same stuff.
Similar. Yeah.
But like, yeah,
They're
they're both like fast things that hit physically hard. But yeah, they are very good. Definitely very solid together. Pursuit is always good with Mega Lopunny, and this is a very good Pursuit Trapper.
Yeah.
Okay.
Weavile is too straightforward to talk.
Yeah, it's a very straightforward Pokemon, but it is very solid, and can definitely be a lot of fun. You can be creative with it a little bit. Like I remember, I think Nips ran like Babiri Berry Weavile for Metagross, or that might have been, no, I think it was, no, Joey ran Babiri Berry Foul Play for Mega Metagross when that was a thing, and that was really cool. So there's some ways you can get creative with this thing. Does it get access to Natural Gift? It does.
Yes.
I don't know what you'd use that for, but it's there. Cool.
Keldeo.
Sure, because Aerial Ace isn't a thing. Anyway,
Aerial banned.
Good point. Okay. Sure. Final Heat bans Aerial. Anyway, last Pokemon in the entirety of OU. A mon that has not been OU for the entirety of Gen 6, but is definitely back. And my personal favorite electric type, Zapdos. So, I love Zapdos before it got static, just because of its typing, its bulk, and its offensive presence. Now that it has static, it's even better. Just because you can, this is also a very good U-turn switch-in, and now it's like just punishing your opponent's U-turns because you have that chance to get your opponent's Pokemon paralyzed, which just always sucks. That being said, you can't run Defog and static, which kind of sucks and maybe a little bit revealing for your opponent, but regardless, like, Pressure is a fine ability. It's very good at pressure stalling opponent's Pokemon. Like, it's very good at switching into close combats. You can possibly stall out Stone Edges with this thing. Like, they're only going to have 4 of each of those, which is really, really nice. Zapdos' bulk at first glance doesn't look amazing. 90 HP, 85 defense, 90 SPDF. But I promise you, when you invest in this thing, it is very, very hard to kill. And especially with its defensive typing in Electric Flying, which is just so good, it's really good at just switching into a lot of different attacks. It, similar to things like Mega Venusaur, is one of those Pokemon that's very difficult to both switch into and deal with at the same time. So like, you may be able to switch in your bulky, I don't know, your bulky grass type onto this thing if it's bulky enough to not get too KO'd by Heat Wave, but then what is it going to do to you? You can switch in your bulky ground type into this thing, but unless you're secondary stab of Stone Edge, or you have a powerful attack stat enough, you're not going to be able to do a lot to this thing. It'll be whittled you down with HP Ice or Toxic. It's super annoying to have to deal with. I've faced it season 1 of PPL, and it was super difficult to get around. I've had it, and I think it died the least amount of times on my team for the mons that I brought regularly, which is really good. And this thing is also extremely versatile. Like I said, it is very bulky, but as you can see, it has a very good special attack stat in base 125 that you can absolutely take advantage of with agility sets, life orb sets, even charge beam sets if you want to do that. It has a pretty decent move pool, not an amazing move pool, but electric fire coverage is really, really good. Plus any hidden power you want to run, typically hidden power ice or grass, is really nice, and it does get access to things like extra sensory, discharge if you want to paralyze things or have a better chance to paralyze things, signal beam for things like Celebi, U-turn to gain initiative versus other ground types, which is always really nice. Very good toxic user as well. You can run baton pass sets as well. You can run like agility baton pass, sub baton pass, or just baton pass in general to escape trappers like Gothitelle or something like that, in case you don't want to run U-turn or something along those lines. It's a very good phaser as well, gives access to roar, which is really nice. Very solid defogger as well, though I typically don't like to run defog on this thing just because it kind of like, it has really good utility in other places, but you definitely can run it as a defogger. It's very good at doing so. It's so good. It's my favorite electric type for a reason. It hits as hard as Thunderous Incarnate. It's bulkier than Thunderous Incarnate. It has access to instant recovery. It's not slow by any stretch of the imagination. 100 speed is really nice particularly nice for defensive Pokemon, so that you can't be taunted by defensive Pokemon, and very nice offensively because you're outspeeding a lot of different wall breakers and you can hit them very hard. Zapdos is just like so good. It's really good.
It's really, really good.
Really good.
Yeah, that was one of those Pokemon I never really got to use in draft format. I always wanted to. So recently, I'm just picking up in everything I can join because it's really good. So yeah, electric flying is such a good defensive typing. Like stuff like Scizor just straight up cannot touch you at all. So you just have one threat on your opponent's side that's immediately useless as long as it's still alive. Because you outspeed it and you have heat wave and stuff like that, and it doesn't do any damage to you with Bullet Punch, or U-turn for that matter. So, yeah, the thing just does its job. Like you can, it's also kind of a steeper Pokemon, I think. At least offensively, people are like, okay, I can kill Zapdos with this thing, maybe, but they don't really prep for it as an offensive threat. Most of the time, not most of the time, but like occasionally it just happens that people are like, oh yeah, Zapdos switch-ins. I don't have those because there aren't many things that want to switch into a electric type with good coverage that is really strong, which Zapdos just happens to be. One of its main issues is that it doesn't get a good flying stab, which is stupid. Why does like no electric flying type get a good flying stab? Just silly. Imagine a thing of Hurricane, that'd just be stupid. Anyway, Zapdos is really good. It's really good gain initiative with Volt Switch or U-turn or Baton Pass, but I don't know why you'd run Baton Pass for initiative on Zapdos, but you can. In case you're predicting Rocky Helmet on things, I guess that works. Yeah, Baton Pass sets are spicy with like Agility or Charge Beam, even if you want to go that route. Yeah, it's a cool mon. It kinda, I think you should also have a good Cleric with it, because people are usually going to try and Toxic it, potentially Scalp Burn it on the switch-in, and then it's gonna get worn down. But if you have a Cleric, then the thing is just gonna stay on forever. Just wear your opponent's team down, or you're just gonna bring an offensive threat and your opponent is gonna be sad about not having good switches to it. So yeah, that was really, really cool. It does its job. That's pretty much it.
Absolutely. I think Zapdos was a little bit underrated coming up into the last couple seasons of leagues, but now I definitely think people understand how absolutely good it is. I forget, I was going to mention something else about this thing, and I don't remember what it was, and I'm blanking on it now. Not Drill Peck. That is an option for like assault vested fighting types, but
yeah. It also doesn't get Whirlwind. It gets Run and Whirlwind. Bullshit.
That's great.
I'm upset about that.
I was gonna mention something about it, but I forget. I know, like, yeah, not having good flying coverage was like, oh, right. Weakness to rocks. Yeah, that one. That is kind of unfortunate. I didn't run into that problem in Season 2, but it can be a problem for a lot of other people just because...
You steamrolled everyone.
I never took a bit of hazard damage that entire season, which is ridiculous, but also, But yeah, for one, it's so bulky and so strong naturally that you can invest bulky, like you can invest like Spadef or physically defensive, and then it's just gonna 2 KO a lot of things anyway, just because of how strong and good its coverage is. Like Thunderbolt, Heat Wave, HP Ice is just like all you need most of the time. And then the Rock's weakness is the one problem that I was gonna bring up, just because it doesn't wall things nearly as well. With Rocks Up. Like, it's gonna be 2 KO'd by a lot of different things with Rocks Up.
Yeah.
But that being said, you also can roost up on a lot of those different things because you do have a decent speed stat. You can outspeed a lot of different things. And the Rock's weakness can be covered up by hazard removal or just by playing aggressively and preventing your opponent from getting hazard. So it's definitely not the biggest problem to have in the world. Would also definitely recommend picking up Zapdos. Along the lines of round 1, it is definitely really solid. It fits so well with other type synergies. Like, I paired it with Mega Lopunny, and this is probably the best thing to pair with Mega Lopunny, especially now that it gets access to static, and obviously resisting things like flying and fighting that Lopunny doesn't want to deal with. It's just it's so good for so many different teams, and I love this thing to death.
Yeah, there aren't many good flying checks, and this is arguably one of the best.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Yeah, really good check to bird spam. But with that being said, that is the entirety of OU that we have covered. It's
pretty nice, and people don't have to listen to me anymore.
Correct.
Nice.
So I may end up doing. I don't know how much time do we have left until Sun and Moon as of this recording? Like two weeks.
You have 2 weeks. I have 3 weeks because I'm European. I'm a loser.
I have 12 days. So I may cover BL with my buddy Kyle before we get to that. I may also continue to do this like throughout Sun and Moon, and I'll just include the Sun and Moon Pokemon. I have no idea. I did want to cover all the tiers, but we're just not going to be able to get to it. There's not enough time until Sun and Moon. So I might do BL. I might do like a couple episodes in PU just for the fun of it. Just because there are a lot of PU mons that don't get drafted off and that are pretty cool. But other than that, that is the end of this series in OU. So thank you guys very much for watching. To those who have watched every single episode, you guys are extra special. Thank you guys very much. What?
You're beautiful if you watched everything.
Definitely, absolutely. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I hope you are looking forward to Sun and Moon content coming out soon, as well as the end of PPL. That should have ended like 3 weeks ago, but, you know.
I think 4 by now, but yeah.
Jesus. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you in the next whatever I do.